What's good, y'all? Welcome to my review for this week's episode of Sword Online Alicization War of Underworld. And man, what an episode this was indeed. This was a very intriguing episode, I would say. Not only for we're finally reaching the end of the Alicization arc, so we're finally seeing the aftermath and the fallout of that arc, but also what this episode may end up like planting seeds for the last arc. Because remember, there's still one more arc after this one. Then SCO is done. Well, this was supposed to be the final, but Rekka was convinced to make one more after this one. So what they drop in here could end up. Now I don't know if this is going to be set up for the next arc, or this is just some shit they're going to just finish off without the one in the last episode. Because there was some very interesting stuff we saw in here that I'm curious on where it's going to lead in either that last episode or in the next arc whenever that does get adapted. But yeah, man, let's just jump right in. So we started the episode off not what I originally thought we were going to see in this episode, which you guys remember, which by the way, also shout out to you guys, because the video for my review last week ended up doing a lot better than expected. There's like over 100 views on it, the retention is pretty good. But I was shocked how well it ended up doing. I did not expect it to get that well. I mean, I know it was a bigger episode, but I did not expect it to do that well. So, shout out to you guys, or maybe for if you guys shared it or anything, or maybe the algorithm finally decided to throw me a bone for once. I don't know. Because I have also been getting a lot of stuff recently. I don't know if from that video or one of my unboxings I've done recently. But either way, looking good. The channel's looking good. Anyway. So, you guys might remember, I mentioned this in my review last week that I thought next week's episode was going to be focused on Kirito and Asuna throughout their 200 years they spent in the Underworld. And that was what the episode was going to focus on, showing us some of the characters, what they've been doing, that like shit. Now, we did get that, but it was far more summarized, and we only saw it a handful of times. We just got basic gist of like, they did this, of what some of the things they did, but we didn't actually sit down there and watch it. I was actually kind of surprised by that. I mean, I know the episode this week was called Alice, so it should have been a dead giveaway that Alice was going to be the focus, but I don't know. I still thought they were going to probably focus on that a little, which they did, but Alice was obviously the main focus for this episode. I mean, she was the title. I mean, she was named the title of the episode. So, anyway, so you start this episode off. They have Rinko doing this like press conference thing, showing off the world's first true general artificial intelligence. Obviously, these Alice. Now, now I don't think the episode ever went into detail with this, but the one thing I'm kind of confused on, now maybe this was some, now granted, we still got one more episode left, so they can probably explain it then, or maybe this was something that was just cut from the light novels. So if you guys, or if any of you have any light novel readers watching the video, if you guys, if it was cut, tell me in the comments. But why don't they, but they never explain us how Alice has a human form. By that I mean, how is she moving all that shit here in the real world? Because remember, the last time we saw her, she was just a miniature cube when she got uploaded. And Rinko took her. She put her in a briefcase and everything. She was just like the little light cube cluster. So how does she have a brain, or not a brain, how does she have a human body? Did they upload her consciousness into something? Is it like a T-800 where it's a mechanical body on top of flesh? With flesh on top of it? Like, how exactly does this work? Now maybe there could, now I think it might be more of a camera, because you guys remember the OP, her eye looks like a camera lens. So I'm assuming her body's more mechanical and they just have like some skin on top of it. I would assume, I don't know. Like I said, maybe you guys know if they explain this in the light novels that got cut from the anime. Tell me down below in the comments, because that was like the one little problem I had with this episode, was that when they did not explain how Alice worked. Like, how does she have a human form, so to speak, in the real world. But anyway, she comes out there, she's actually rocking Kirito and Asuna's school outfits, which I thought was pretty interesting. She looks really good in them. And then when she gets down there, she like puts like one of her hands over her chest and the other one by her hip. Now at first this kind of confused me, why is her hand by there? But then as I thought about it, it looks like that's actually probably because that's where her sword would usually be, because she introduced herself as Alice Synthesis 30 in Integrity Night, obviously. So I'm assuming she did it because that's how she would greet someone. She would like put her hand by her sword, which is on your hip, and bow. I'm assuming that's what it is, so I'm assuming she just does it out of habit. That's at least my assumption on why she like put her hand by her hip. So I guess you could say this is the result of the bleeding effect. if we were going to get technical with Assassin's Creed terms. But yeah, man. Anyway, so after she gets introduced, they sit down and everything. You have the dude kind of introduce himself, or one of the first questions. It starts off pretty reasonable enough. Well, first off, we actually head over back to Sugu, Sion, and the rest of the guys. They're all Sugu, Sion, Liz, and Agil and Klein. They're all chilling by Agil's bar, and they're watching the press conference on TV, and they comment like, oh, and Silica's like, oh, she's wearing our school outfit, and then Liz says that actually that apparently she requested it because she wanted to wear the same uniform as the people that helped out the Humans General Army or whatever, So, which I felt confident that she wore that outfit because, Sion and Sugu are both working for different schools, but then again, most of them come from that school, so I guess it was just like, there's more of them from that school, so we'll go with that uniform. And it's probably the best looking out of the three, let's be honest. So anyway, after they comment like how the suit looks good and how she's wearing it, it looks pretty good. That they did a good job. They also commented that she also probably requested to wear her armor, her gold armor, but rats couldn't afford it. Probably, I mean that thing was made out of pure gold or whatever. There's no way they could afford it, let alone then get it crafted in enough time. This was obviously the much easier approach. But anyway, so after we get back there, we start with the first dude that opens up with the question. Starts out reasonable enough. He asks, how does Alice work different than other programmable robots? And they mentioned because her photonic brain, I think that's how you call it, is very similar to the human brain and can not be written with binary code, and how her brain is very much similar to the human brain. And so the dude asked her could you give us a demonstration of this? And Rinko starts to get a little annoyed at this guy, and she's like, you have her turning results in the pamphlet that was in the handout that was handed when you guys got here. And he's like, no, I don't mean that. I mean, can you open up her skull and show us her photonic brain? And Rinko looks like she's offended by this question, and she was about to clap back at this guy. But then Alice is like, no. She has this under control. And man, was she feeling savage this day? So in the most passive-aggressive, low-key, savage move I've ever seen from really anybody, you gotta give Alice props here. Was this woman savage? So she says this with a smile on her face. She says, oh, but first, yeah, I don't mind showing you, but can you prove to me how you are not a robot, how you yourself is human? The dude is confused. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about, woman? Of course I'm human. What the hell, what do you want me to do? And he says, simple. Open up your skull and show us your brain. I laughed so hard when she said that, man. The savagery was on point. I would give Alice the Savage Award of the Week for that line. Man, was that savage. That was absolutely savage. And then I think it was Sugu that mentions how Alice is getting kind of mad, and she said that whole thing with a smile on her face, which kind of made it that much more, But anyway, after that, we get back to the interview, and another person stands up. Which actually, if you looked closely, you can see that she's actually rocking onto that augmented reality thing from SAO Ordinal Scale, which I thought that was a nice little touch there. I thought that was really cool that she was wearing that. I thought that was cool anyway. And she asked her about that labor unions are already being a little bit fearful on the possibilities robots of these are AIs, I should say, these real AIs or whatever they call them, true AIs, I believe is what they call them. That they could end up raising the unemployment rate and all that stuff because we all know people to save on money you might cut some workers to up your profit margins with robots because you don't need to pay robots and all that shit. And she said this was a question for Dr. Kochu Rinko. And so Rinko says that no, that those concerns are unfounded, and that they have no plans to just drop them into the unskilled labor force and also they cannot. And she also asked them about them being mass produced, and she says them that these robots these AIs cannot be mass produced because as we see they start off as an infant and they grow up along the way by families and all the other stuff which we have seen throughout the series. And so then she said that they shouldn't just taking these true AIs, these pluck like Alice, and just shoving them into the workforce should not even happen at all. And the reporter is just kind of surprised by this. She asked her are you actually acknowledging her for having human rights, Alice? She's talking about, and she says that yes, you might be uncomfortable to mention that now, but she hopes in maybe a century or maybe two that we can that will not be a thing, and that we can start families, live together in harmony with each other. Which, honey, let's be real, that ain't happening anytime soon. I mean, just look at what the world is like right now. It's practically the Wild West outside, man. But anyway, But she hopes that one day that they can work together, not discriminate against each other, they can start families together and all that shit. And they can live in peace and harmony in a perfect utopia that, let's be real, will never happen. I'm just being the realist, ladies and gentlemen. But so she kind of like, and then she kind of like freaks out a little bit. But she's like, but doctor, they're too different from us. They're too different. How can you see these man-made machines are the same as humankind? And I thought her reaction here was very telling, which I'll kind of dissect on why that is in a moment after we get a little bit later because of what happens later on in the episode. So keep that in the back of your mind. And so then Alice kind of goes in there and she kind of goes on that she has accepted the fact that, she has accepted the fact as their creators, and she's thankful for them to create her. But she also mentioned something someone from her world, which I think she's referring to Yujo, although I'm not sure. Like I think this is about Yujo, or she might be talking about Kirito. I'm not sure. Either way, you guys tell me in the comments on who it was, because I think it might have been Yujo, it might have been somebody else. Or it might have been Berkeley for all I know. I'm not sure. Or it might have been the administrator. I don't know. But anyway, if you guys remember who she's talking about, tell me down below in the comments. Because I'm trying to remember, because I can't really remember who it was. But anyway, Alice says, what if the real world is also a world created by others? And what if there were even more creators outside of it? And I love the shot right here where it's like a double shot. Where it's like a split shot. You have Alice's face on one side of the screen and the reporter's side of the screen. Alice is very stern and serious as she's saying this, while the reporter is like kind of like taking it back and probably questioning all the reality more than when she first saw The Matrix. And I thought that was just like nice little contrast with it. I love the shot. I love that shot right there. I thought that was really, really cool. So props to whoever the cinematographer was for this episode. Whoever saw an idea that shot was gonna give yourself a pat on the back, man. But anyway, and then she mentions, what if one day your own creators will appear for you? Would you just let them take over? Would you just let them take you into slavery and then you just sit there and beg for mercy? And she mentions how she has had various interactions with real worlders, like referring to Asuna, Kirito, Liz, Silica, everybody. And that they showed her so much, and that she's even fallen for one of them, which kind of had me rolling my eyes, and she's kind of going on about how she loves this person, and it's very kind of like romantic dialogue. It was fine, nothing to, but I was just kind of like rolling my eyes at it, because you guys already know my thoughts on Reki having all the women like fawn over Kirito and all that shit. I've mentioned that time and time again throughout my other reactions, not my reactions, my other reviews, so I won't repeat myself here, and I don't want the video to be like an hour long. But anyway, she mentions that that she wants to see this person, that even the steel chair feels like it's gonna burst, this and the third. And so she extends her hand and she says, I have a right hand that I will extend to the people of man, to the people of like mankind or whatever. But I will not fall to my knees and grind my forehead to dirt. She's pretty, which that was a nice little way. She's like, look, we're on equal footing and all that shit, but I'm not just gonna let you guys run over me and all that shit. I'm gonna stand my ground. Push comes to shove, which I liked. I liked that little line there from Alice. So then we have her back to Higa. He's like still in the rap. He's still chilling on rap and everything. He's obviously watching the thing on the big screen. We then see these two people on chairs kind of discussing what's going on. They theorize that the enemy force was after the artificial, was after the flux lights and all that shit. And then they mentioned that actually that Kikoka was like the lone casualty from this. And I was like, oh damn. At first I was like, oh damn. Sucks he died, man. I liked it. But then, as some events, it's like, man, it's surprising you ended up being the single casualty, he said. Next thing we know, Kikoka's out there, the man's wearing sunglasses, he's got like a Hawaiian shirt. I think they even had like some Hawaiian island, like tropical music playing in the background, I think. And the man looks like he's about to go take a trip to fucking Hawaii. So we find out the man actually faked his death, because if they didn't, then the government was looking for someone to blame. They most likely would have actually killed him because of that. And them going, and he was like, and he asked him, like, what's a really good idea for us to go public about this? And he says that with this going public, that pretty much means that the Americans have to like pull back and kind of give up on trying to take the flux lights. So then we head over back. Oh my god, this part of the episode, man. Woo! Facepalm moment of the month was this episode. Or this section of the episode. So we get there, So we get back to Alice. This dude stands up. He says, "What are the possibilities of them annihilating us, or annihilating all humans and taking over the planet?" And I'm like, "Fam, boy!" You know, and I'm just like, "Fam, really? You go there?" Like, that is such a dumb question. Like, granted, he does have a point from all, and he mentioned this later on the episode about all the sci-fi movies and the books and all that stuff, but at the same time, like, fam, come on, man, why do you need to go there? And Rinko says, there's only one scenario where that would actually happen, and Alice is like, kind of like shocked, but well, actually, almost forgot to mention this, right before we went back to Alice, that we saw Higoka told Higo to look at the screen, and it was Kirito's floodlight. And it like starts to twitch a little bit. We hear like this beeping sound from it. So so back to Alice, like I said before, and she's shocked when Rinko said there's actually one scenario where that would actually happen, and it's the one. It's like it's the one obvious scenario that if we try to eliminate them first, they would eliminate us. And she's kind of shocked about this. She's looking around now. I don't know if she was actually shocked by what Rinko said, or maybe she somehow sensed Kirito's floodlight was going off a little bit or whatever. I don't know if it's a bit of both or it was just on Rinko, but she's like, but doctor, what about all the books and movies? Surely you have to. And I'm just like, fam, really? You're gonna bring up all these science fiction books, science fiction movies like Terminator, fucking Planet of the Apes, 2001: Space Odyssey, I think is one. System Shock 2. That's a game, but still. What else? The Matrix is obviously one of the biggest one with the Animatrix, and like I said before, I mentioned this before, but I'm now going to kind of fish it up right now when I say that the female reporter's reaction when she started talking about human rights and robots and all that shit was very telling. Because as us as humanity, we fear what we don't understand. This is a proven fact. We all know this. And no more can we say more stuff like the Animatrix, for you guys that have seen it. Now, great, I'm going off of the old memory here. I haven't seen the Animatrix in God knows how long, so if I end up getting some details wrong, that's why. But if you guys remember the Animatrix, the one where it actually explained the backstory of how the Matrix became, or how the real world became how it is, the Matrix, the black sky and everything. It started off with where humanity and robots were like working together, peace and harmony, all was good. It's very similar to the X-Men, actually. Very similar to the X-Men and what has going on with mutants. But what happened is after they kind of started, but eventually humanity started to turn on the robots. The robots ended up deciding, fine, we'll go to our own separate little place. Humanity didn't like that for whatever reason, and they like took down their area. They blacked out the sky, and then eventually, the robots and AI took over from humanity. That's like a brief summary of what happened in that one short from the Animatrix. But it is kind of telling from what happens here. We fear we don't understand, and that fear could end up biting us in the ass, like we see in pretty much a lot of these fine science fiction books and movies, where we end up having mankind being just decimated, and you have AI and cybernetics and all that shit, and like Terminator and stuff are all taken over. That usually ends up what's happening. So, like I said, I thought that was like this is definitely like the most interesting part of the episode, except what happens around the end. But yeah, I thought that was very telling, considering what we see in other movies like the animation and such. Anyway, so Alice ends up deciding, she has to leave. She's like, look like this, she's kind of like looking around for whatever reason. And like I said, I think it might have been, I don't know if she was because of Kirito or Al or what Rinko said, but either way, she ends up leaving the area. We then we see her back, and by Kirito and Ashita, they're both kind of like logged out of the STLs, and we see Alice walking through the door. She instantly runs over to Kirito, grabs her hand, she's on the verge of tears and all that shit, and then Kirito slowly starts to wake up, and I'm kind of a little pissed off. The first thing he sees is Alice is not Ashita, but whatever, it is what it is. But anyway, and then she's like, oh, hey Alice, long time no see, and she's like on the verge of tears and everything, and all that shit. And then Kirito looks over at Higa, and he tells him, delete the last 200 years off my memory. Delete it. It is obsolete. Delete. I had to get my Matt Hardy shit. But anyway, he tells her he tells him to get rid of it, delete it all, and that my and the Queen's roles are done. Which I love the fact he called Asuna the Queen, because that's what she is, man. Not that she's a goddess, if you ask me, but hey, a queen nonetheless. So anyway, we then had then we cut to Kirito now in another hospital, and he's kind of like, and this is where he's just kind of chilling, just trying to recover from obviously being in the STO for like what, 6 months? How long was he in that thing? 6 months, a year? Well, technically 200 years because that's what it felt like because he was in there, but in terms of actual real world thing, he was in there for like maybe a year at max. So Kirito finally wakes up, and then we see Austin walks in, and looking as beautiful as ever, wearing this nice little blue dress. She actually had her hair different this time. Instead of it being the usual way, she actually had like these two, like, I don't know, scrunchies or whatever, and it kind of like separated her hair. It looked nice. I mean, I prefer her hair how she usually has it, but it looked nice. I don't mind. She also brought on these blue roses. Don't know why. I didn't know roses were in blue, but hey, whatever. It looked nice. And so she sits down there, she says, sorry, I'm a little late. He's like, don't worry, I just woke up. So Kirito gets up, she sits down on the bed, she starts massaging his shoulder, being like, yo, Kirito, have you been eating? You seem like the only night time to be of your true self. Have you been eating? And she's like, yeah, woman, I've been eating, fam, like, calm down. Obviously, they didn't say all that, but yeah. So anyway, Mr. Kikoga comes in there, and he kind of tells him what's going on, about how the government's taking over the turtle, about the ocean's turtle, and that the underworld's like future is a bit hazy. More Kirito obviously like, oh yeah, what about the underworld? And he says that that he needs high bandwidth, and he says like he wants, and he has somewhat of a plan. And Kirito's like he has a plan to save the underworld. He said he doesn't really have a plan with his hope. He's kind of hoping that people I guess sympathizers, you want to call them, for the Floodlights start to work together and start to congregate, and then hopefully that could buy them some extra time to keep them from completely shutting down the underworld, because they mentioned that the press conference bought them some extra time. So that's what their plan and tact is for right now. And Kirito goes over there and he gets up and he walks over to Kikoka and he bows and tells him to protect the underworld and all that shit. And I gotta say, Kikoka was looking snazzy today. This man came out with a gray suit jacket, a black shirt, and then a green tie. It looked fantastic. That's a man that looks good in a fuck suit. I don't know why he was wearing that. Oh wait, now I remember. I think the reason he wore that robe throughout all of Alicization was because I think his clothes were in the laundry or something. I think that's what happened. Why he was dressed up like that, because this man looks good in this suit. I don't know why he wasn't wearing this suit. That's the whole part of the Alicization, but hey, I'll digress. But anyway, so he tells them that that they kind of so he tells them that he's gonna try his best, and then hopefully that their plan of attack ends up working. So he ends up losing. And then we head over back to and we also find that Kirito's going to get discharged in 3 days. But we then never back to Higa. Higa talks about oh, there's no way this is gonna work, and all this stuff. So then he hits enter key and he just says fuck. He hits enter, and we find out that they actually did copy Kirito's Floodlight. He did copy. And so he mentions, and then he and Higa start to have a little conversation going on there. And then we kind of find out that so he's like, oh, so you didn't believe me, and he goes like, I couldn't delete you. You're the longest living human of all in all of human history. You lived through. No one Floodlight has lived past 200 years. You're the first to do it. I couldn't delete you. This, and third. And so he has and then he had a plan of it, and then he did have an idea of this. What happened? He talked to Her Majesty Asuna. I like the sound of that. Her Majesty Asuna. That sounds good. But anyway, so we see Kirito and Austin in bed. By the way, we didn't get the fucking kiss, which kind of pisses me off. But hey, we still got one more episode, so A1 can make it back. Please, A1, give me one goddamn kiss. I'm not asking for fucking chapter 13.5 to get adapted. Just give me a kiss. I ain't asking for the impossible. Anyway, or whatever chapter that was. Anyway, so as I was saying, we also see that also actually had her hair braided up. It was very similar to how Alice has her hair. Looked really nice. Not gonna lie, looked really nice. And so they had a plan. That they both had plans of what they were gonna do in case any of these happened. If this officer if this officer's one was copied, she would instantly leave. If both of them were copied, then they would work together with every time they had left to combine to have the real world and underworld work together and become one. But if it was just Kirito that got saved, and throughout this whole thing, for whatever reason, I don't even know why they did this. Throughout this last part of the section when they talk about this story, how Kirito himself got We have we just focus. I don't know, fucking Quentin Tarantino suddenly was the director of this episode, but we have this close-up shot on their feet. Asuna is like tapping, like pressing her feet against Kirito's constantly, and Kirito kind of like presses back against me. Now, which I'm like, did Quentin Tarantino tell him to take over the episode? Because y'all know he kind of still gets a flash by this. Now, I know with this scene, most of y'all are expecting me to start simping over this woman's feet. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I will not. Listen, I love Asuna. I'm a borderline Asuna simp. I simp over this woman all of the time on Twitter. You should see, if you guys follow me Twitter, you know how horny or thirsty or whatever you want to call it. My simp post for Asuna are. For God's sake, tweet out this woman's fucking lips and her hair. Okay? I have gone down to some depths beforehand, but even I have my limits. I'm sorry. I'm not into it. I don't really even understand why people are even into it. I'm not going to judge you. That's what you like. Hey man, Godspeed to you. But that ain't my thing. So not even Asuna's feet. And this is going for a guy that doesn't like legs, but yet I love Masaki's legs. Not even Asuna. My second favorite female character of all time. Even she cannot make me gush over her woman. Even she can't make me sip over her feet. I'm sorry. I know some of y'all might have been expecting that, but I'm sorry to disappoint. You will not see nothing on my Twitter about this woman's feet. Or we talk about it. I'm sorry. But anyway, so after we get that questionable shot out of the way, we finally, like I said before, Kirito was going to fight solely for the Underworld. Because he is the protector of this world. And so they keep talking for a moment. They're trying to figure out ways how to keep the Underworld afloat. And they mentioned that it's not going to work because since Turtle is now enhanced the government. And on the whim, they could turn off the power tomorrow and all will be gone. But then he mentioned how much of the fusion reactor lasts. And since it's only maintaining the light cluster, he said it could go for about 4 to 5 years. So it's like, okay, so unless some shit happens, they don't have to worry about refueling at all. And then he mentioned that they're going to need Heath for it. They're going to need his help. And I love the shot here. I love that you had the shot of Kirito, like Kirito with his actual front part body, and then behind him in the distance was Kaiba looking in the other direction. Oh my god, that shot was amazing. I'm gonna try and put that shot in the thumbnail because man, did it look nice. So he says that they're gonna need. He says no, we're gonna Akihiko Kaiba. We're going to need his help. And he gets kind of surprised by this. He's like, Kaiba-senpai? And then we get some flashback back to when he was like, when he took over that robot's body and all that shit. Because remember, the body was gone. So most likely he's still somewhere, he's hiding around somewhere on Ocean's Turtle. Which makes you kind of curious on what's going to happen. And they ask him, like, are you going to help us? We need to get Kaiba. And he says, what's going to happen? These two people coming together. Or, what will happen? I feel like I opened Pandora's box. And we get this nice shot of Kaiba and Kirito kind of look at each other before they pass by each other, and we see like their heads are kind of like right next, or like kind of like by, or like side to side to each other, and then the colors kind of disappear and it's like kind of like yellowish, outlines or whatever. It looks fantastic, man. Those two shots look absolutely fantastic. But anyway, yeah. So Higa decides that he's going to work together with Kirito and to like fight for the Underworld. So that should be interesting when that's going to lead, either in the next last episode, or perhaps it might factor into the last episode when they're fighting against Kirito's AI. That'd actually be quite interesting if Reki actually went that direction, or it's Kirito going up against himself. That would be very interesting if that was actually the case. I don't know if he's gonna go that route, but that would be very interesting to see. Anyway, so we end the episode off almost. We go to Kirito. He's like finally wakes. He's finally back in his house. He goes over to his room. He just plops on the bed. Probably thinking like, oh, finally I'm back in my own goddamn bed for the first time in like 202 years. He just sits there and he chills. But then he goes to sleep. He starts remembering, of course, about Yujo. The man starts crying. He wishes that they took away all his memories, all the 2 years he spent with Yujo. He starts crying, like his like head's deep into his pillow. He's just like, ugh, crying all that shit. Voice acting was really good. You had the ED playing the background with the credits and everything. Suga then shows up and she asks her ask him to tell her all about it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything. So then he kind of like starts to explain like what happened with Yujo and all that shit. And before we get to, I guess you can call it the post-credit scene. But we get to the post-credit scene, if you want to call it that, and Kirito, we see Rinko and Alice are in like this, like, you know, this little swanky party. They're all dressed up and everything. Alice is wearing this nice purple dress. It looked very nice with her hair and everything. It looked the purple dress looked really good on her. I'm not gonna lie, the purple dress looked real good. And Asuna, or not Asuna, Alice, while she's looking outside the window, says to herself, I think she says, Kirito, I feel like I'm going to wither away. Something along those lines. But then, after that, before we actually finally end the episode off, Kirito is sleeping by his bed and his phone starts to ring and it's Rinko calling. And that's where the episode ends. So, overall, fantastic episode. Very intriguing where this could lead in either the last episode or in the final arc whenever that does get adapted. Yeah, man. Not really much more I can say about this episode. It was just fantastic, man. So overall, I'm going to give this episode a 10 out of 10, ladies and gentlemen. So hope y'all enjoyed the video. You can like if you did, subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, if you like. Links on the description box below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time. Now, excuse me, I got prepared for the Lakers game.